I sit here, profitable, successful by all the definitions of the world. But what really, really, really resonates deeply with me is that I live a fantastic life. You can only do that you cannot do it unless you take the time to actually know who you are and why you are here. I knew that in that moment, it was time for me to go, and that I started the process for myself of preparing myself for.
Often in your career, I'm sure you are a minority, perhaps as the only woman, the only black person, the only person from a poor family. Did this affect you on your professional path? And how did you navigate situations in which you might have felt more alone? And now, how did that impact how you lead and how you might help people who may be feeling that same thing?
Always the only woman in the room. Still walk in, only woman in the room. And there's a room full of white men, usually older. Thrills me, just thrills me. I just love it. Usually the only black person in the room. Also, never really concerned me because I don't look at people through color. I didn't get to be where I am and who I am by looking at the color of people's skin. I really, literally took Martin Luther King at his word and understand that the content of a person's character, and refuse to let anybody else do that to me. So I love it, just love it. And there's a wonderful phrase by Maya Angelou from a poem that she wrote called To Our Grandmothers, that she says, "When I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. So when I walk into a room, and particularly before I have something really challenging to do, or I'm going to be in a circumstance where I feel I'm going to be, up against some difficulties, I will literally sit and I will call on that 10,000. I will call on the ancestors. I will call on those people who've come before me. I will call on the women who forged a path that I might be able to sit in the room with all of those white men and love it so much. I call on that because I know that my being where I am, and first of all, being who I am and where I am, didn't come just out of myself, that I come from a heritage. And so I own that, and I step into that room, not just as myself, but I bring all of that energy with me. So it has never been an issue for me, except when I was, I think, 23, still working in Baltimore. I'd gone to my boss and said that the guy who was working with me, my co-host on the People Are Talking show, was making more money than I. And we were co-hosts. So I went to my boss and I said, this is in 1970, so I was older than 23. It was in 1979, 80. And I said, I just would like to, you know how intimidating it is to go to the boss in the first place. But I'm going to go and I'm going to stand up for myself. And I said, Richard's making more money than I am, and I don't think that's fair because we're doing the same job. We sit in the same show. We did the same. And my general manager said, why should you make as much money as he? And I said, because we're doing the same job. And he said, but he has children. Do you have children? And I said, no. He said, well, he has to pay for college educations. He owns his own home. Do you own your home? I said, no. He said, he has a mortgage to pay. He has insurance. Do you have that? No. So tell me, why do you need the same amount of money? And I said, thank you for your time. And I left. I left. I didn't complain about it. I didn't file a suit about it. I knew that in that moment, it was time for me to go. And that I started the process for myself of preparing myself for, you will not be here long. You are not going to be able to get what you need. I had a boss at the time who was African American and had just been, for the first time, made an assistant news director and was drunk with power. drunk with power, and felt it I think he woke up in the morning thinking of things he could do to harass me. I decided not to file a suit against it because I knew at the time I would lose,
Right.
that no good would come of it, that I would be blackballed in television, that it would turn into a major thing, and I knew I didn't have long to stay there. I had a vision for what the future was, even though I couldn't place exactly where my future would be. I knew who held the future, because I am really guided by a force that's bigger than myself. I know that my being here on the planet is not just of my own.
So you use that as momentum to just leave, cut your losses, and
No,
go.
I filed it away. I go,
Yeah.
there will come a time. I will be sitting in the same room, and it happened like in the late 90s. I had the Oprah show, and I ran into that guy. Lord Jesus, thank you. Oh my God. Oh, one of the sweetest moments I've ever had. Oh, go ahead.
Here we go. So right now, as we sit here, we're about 5 miles from Facebook and Sheryl Sandberg. And last year, she published the book Lean In, and it has gotten incredible traction. It had some, criticism as well. And I was wondering, if you were to write a book on women in careers, what would your title be?
Mine would be, actually, mine wouldn't be Lean In. It would be Step Up. Into yourself. Because this is the truth. There is no real doing in the world without being first. For me, being, your presence, your connection to yourself and that which is greater than yourself is far more important than what you do, but also is the thing that fuels what you do.
Right.
And I know that one of the things that is so important for what happens here at the graduate school is that you have leaders who are self-actualized and understand what your contribution to change the world can be. You can only do that if you know yourself. You can only do that you cannot do it unless you take the time to actually know who you are and why you are here. Now, I happen to know for sure that every human being comes called, and that the calling goes beyond the definition of what your job is. That there is an innate, supreme moment of destiny for everybody. And that's why when I was in Baltimore, I could feel this isn't it. This isn't it. And then in Chicago, after 25 years of success on the show, I started to feel this isn't it. There's something more, something more, something more that's calling me to what is the supreme moment. And everybody has that. And you cannot fulfill it unless you have a level of self-awareness, to be connected to what is the inner voice or the instinct. I call it your emotional GPS system that allows you to make the best decisions for yourself. And every decision that has profited me has come from me listening to that inner voice first. And every time I've gotten into a situation where I was in trouble, it's because I didn't listen to it. I overrode that voice, that instinct with my own head, my own thinking. I tried to rationalize it. I tried to tell myself, but okay, you're gonna make a lot of money. Oh no. And so I sit here profitable, successful by all the definitions of the world. But what really, really, really resonates deeply with me is that I live a fantastic life. My inner life is really intact. I live from the inside out. And so everything that I have because I let it be fueled by who I am and what I realize my contributions to the planet could be. And what my real contribution is, it looks like I was a talk show host. It looks like, I'm in the movies. It looks like, I have a network. But my real contribution, the reason why I'm here, is to help connect people to themselves and the higher ideas of consciousness. I'm here to help raise consciousness.